Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for a video that I've wanted to make for a long time. Today we're going in on Game of Thrones, and this is a series that I really wanted to like. My literature teacher actually in high school gave me this first book, let's say fucking 2011 or some shit. I don't know. Years are hard. Anyway, I started reading this stuff, and I really wanted to enjoy it, but there's a couple of things that really kept me from liking Game of Thrones from the very beginning. This is right when the show was starting to kick off, and I'm a big read-it-first kind of person, so I dove into those books pretty wholeheartedly. The first thing that popped out to me that I really didn't like about Game of Thrones was just the sheer amount of names in this. I couldn't tell a Baratheon from a Targaryen from a Stark. I can't even remember most of the names at this point, but I didn't like it. I didn't like having to keep track of that shit, and it was just getting pelted time after time with names, but I eventually got through that. That wasn't such a big deal. Really, the final pin in the Game of Thrones coffin for me was the lackluster plot points. Really, it would have this beautiful setup for these wonderful plot points that could develop into something really epic and then do nothing with it. And I have a couple good examples of this. I will admit I stopped watching the series in the second season. I stopped reading the books after the second book, so I never made it to big plot points like the Red Wedding or the dragons, I don't know, burning things. See, I don't know because I don't care. And so I'm just going to take a couple examples from the first couple books, and we're going to talk about how there was no payoff. There was no payoff whatsoever, and it was just a completely wasted plot line. And we're starting with the very beginning of the book. The first chapter was all about the dire wolves, right? Now, this is something, each Stark gets a dire wolf. I was ready for this to play out into something cool. Maybe take it on an Aragon angle, right? They have these magical beasts. Something cool is going to happen with them. Fuck no. I think the only one that ends up mattering is Jon Snow's direwolf, and even then it leaves and comes back. There was no payoff. It would have been a great opportunity that was completely wasted by George R.R. Martin. Completely wasted when I believe it was Arya's direwolf gets run off into the woods. It would have been a great plot point for them to circle back around to that later on in the seasons and for some good stuff to come with that. Same with, it was really just a huge letdown and a waste of potential just to kill Sansa's direwolf outright. Bullshit. They should have done something more with that, and it was completely wasted. That leads me into talking about the Comet from the second book. I thought that the Comet could have something cool, kind of like an Avatar The Last Airbender effect, where it makes the magic more powerful, but this was also entirely wasted and nothing really came out of it. It was, a signifier for certain plot events or for the dragons coming back or some shit like that. And that was it. It could have landed on the planet somewhere. It could have had more magical effects. Could have had some religious significance. Did it? Did it have any of that? Fuck no. No, it was just George R.R. Martin stroking his... As you can tell, this Game of Thrones stuff makes me really heated. I feel like this is way overhyped and way overblown for very, very little payoff. So I have a lot of satisfaction when I hear about people talking about the final season and what a huge letdown it was, because I saw this coming. I saw this coming from the very beginning. How we fucked around for an entire 2 books, 8 seasons about the White Walkers for something that was in the prologue, right? So yeah, we've moved on to the White Walkers now. The White Walkers were set up in the very prologue of the show, in the very prologue of the book, and there was no development. No development for books, for seasons, for literal years. Decades of development, because you got to remember that Game of Thrones started in the 90s, late 80s, some bullshit like that. I don't have it pulled up. I don't give a shit. Fuck Game of Thrones. It has been the greatest waste of time. And additionally, just quick side tangent here to talk about the pros. We'll get back to the lack of payoffs here in a second, but the pros of Game of Thrones, I am no illiterate country bumpkin when it comes to reading. I like to read quite a bit. You can check out, a review on my channel. Pop a card to the Way of Kings review right there. You can check out the other shit on my channel. I like to read. I'm pretty into it. I've read several books and talked about them on this channel. At least 2, right? The pros of Game of Thrones, not very easy to read. It's dense. It's dense and in a bad way. It's written in such a convoluted and bullshit way that could be more direct. And even when it is direct, I feel like it's poorly done. I should be pulling up examples for these, but you know what? Fuck it. Fuck Game of Thrones. Fuck George R. The best example of a bad payoff is the death of, like, Ned Stark. Is that his name? Death of Ned Stark. Best example of a poor payoff. There was a lot of care, I feel, and work put into a main character who had a really good plotline, only to kill him at the end of the first book. I really feel like that death didn't have any meaning in the long term, right? Because if you're talking about, like, a hero's journey, right? Typically for a hero's journey, you want to kill the mentor, right? That's kind of a trope that goes into a lot of fantasy, a lot of in Harry Potter, they kill Dumbledore. In Mistborn, they kill Kelsier. Spoilers, by the way, for those two series. But my point being, it's a very common thing to kill the mentor when it comes to these sorts of novels. But Ned was a main character. He wasn't really a mentor to anyone. His death didn't really have any specific growth impact on any specific character. And that's just bad writing. That's just a waste of a death for something that could be used much better. And I am just blown away that people are so horny. They all need to go to horny jail for liking Game of Thrones, because the only reason to like this is for the softcore porn and maybe the torture porn. And I am as big a fan of torture porn as anyone else. Okay? Nothing wrong with the torture porn aspects, but even then, it's poorly done. Poorly done, in my opinion. Let's see, the scene with the Reach, is that the one that it's called, with the, the big overhang with where you gotta hang out? I feel like there was one good shot of that, but it could have been used to greater effect. Now, for example, a similar idea in Brent Weeks' Dark Angel trilogy, there is a place that's similar to the Reach called Hell's Asshole. However, instead of just being a side plot for a couple of chapters like in Game of Thrones, they spend a whole book in Hell's Asshole and really dig into the details about what makes, a place called Hell's Asshole so awful. And there's just all sorts of rape and gangrenous darkness and all sorts of terrible shit. And even then, there are some really wholesome moments that happen within Hell's Asshole. In particular, there's one character who's always just grinding his teeth, and his jaw really hurts, but this character is really spooky, kind of scary kind of character that everyone wants to not hang around. But the main character who's stuck in Hell's Asshole rubs his jaw. I know, kind of lackluster, but it's this really wholesome moment where he helps out this scary hulk of a man in the near darkness of a donut-shaped abyss in the ground with a dragon at the bottom. Like, there's so much that could have been done, I feel like, at every conceivable step for Game of Thrones. But you know what? I'll toss it back to you people, my viewers. Do you like Game of Thrones? Is this something that you guys actually enjoy? Because I really wanted to like it. As I said, it was something that I had a passion for. I read a lot of that. Those are not small books to be reading. And I gave it a lot of my time to viewing it. And I'm not going to lie to you, when I got into the second season, it just put me to sleep. It really did. I was not into it at all. So if you like it, please tell me why. If you disagree with my reasoning for disliking it, the payoffs are a big thing. I've definitely heard people say the lack of payoffs are why they like it. Now, if you're someone who says that and you don't like the final seasons because of their lack of payoff, you can go fuck yourself. You have bad reasoning. That's the one time I won't accept that. If you say that Game of Thrones is about bad payoffs, you're gonna have to agree that the ending was in line with the vision of the show in the books. That's my one stipulation there. I'm gonna stand by it because I think it's just the most sweet thing. It's the sweetest thing to listen to Game of Thrones fans bitch about the last couple seasons, because it was a lot of buildup. It was like 8-9 years of buildup into nothing, into like basically nothing. And that's how I felt from the very beginning reading it, from the direwolves to the religion to the dragons to Khal Drogo. Oh my god, don't even get me started about Khal Drogo. What a great character to kill immediately. Why? That could have been so much better. Imagine a storyline where Daenerys and Khal Drogo actually go on to be a power couple and take over all the fucking land. Now, isn't that a story that sounds a lot better than the current Game of Thrones? That's just one thing. You change one thing about a small sliver of things that happened in there, like the bastard sons in the king's bastard sons. Not a lot was done there. They could have done a lot more with that. In other books, it would have had a bastard son who had a redemption story arc. You know, there was so much potential wasted in Game of Thrones that it's years now after I have stopped reading it, after I have stopped caring, but I needed to go on this rant. I absolutely needed to go on this rant because I just fucking hate it so much. But hey, if you like it, please let me know down below. I'm willing to have a conversation. If I get enough good points, maybe I'll address them in a secondary video. Who knows? I could do it. I don't know. Maybe people actually have coherent, rational reasons for liking this pile of shit, and I'm just a biased asshole. But that's about all. I'll talk to you fuckers later.